Hello from Algorrobi. You can find all the blog on www.soulterriologicgarden.com, and I want to say happy 2022. Despite all the news that goes on in the world, some of us are being very productive. And this year I've travelled to Africa, where I've been teaching, and I've travelled to Asia, where I've been prospecting for new work opportunities, and I've been doing charity bike rides from the south of England up to the Orkney Isles to raise money for various charities. So here we are, and on this beautiful morning, it's been very hot here, and there's talk of drought, heat waves already. So I'm going to give you a tour of the land, as I've spent just over a week coming back to a jungle. There's been a lot of rain in March, but there's been practically nothing since then. So I'm keeping the flower, and what I've actually been doing is trimming down the paths so that I can gain access to various places. So it's wonderful to come back and see that most of the trees were still alive. And you can see my windbreak there, my cypress trees, which are absolutely thriving now. I think they're about 4 to 5 years old now when I put those in. And if I come around the other side, you can see the house and the land extending further down. But the idea behind this row of cypress trees is to protect the outdoor kitchen area, which is going to have a post and beam structure in a circular manner. You can see that I'm using the tyres as building blocks here in the earthship manner, and this area here is going to have some sort of lock-up. But I'm also thinking of creating a refrigerated space here. That has been one of the big issues at the moment during the summer. You cannot even keep any form of dairy product within the caravan space itself, because it overheats. But this is a wonderful view now of the land. So I'm going to take you a little walk around with a short tour, and you can see the flower, which is why it would be absolute criminal to trim this down, because my bees were absolutely thriving. Even though I didn't have that many, I'd lost a load last year to Varroa. The 3 colonies, which I'm hoping have some sort of natural disease resistance, produced their own swarms, and I came back to an extra 3 swarms. And then I divided up the original 3 hives, because they were producing a lot of brood and very little honey, and I literally had brood from one end of the box to the other. So from those 3 boxes I took another 4 divisions, so I'm back up to 10, and you can see what's going on here. Now when I put a little stone on the top, it means I've taken the queen out and transferred her to another empty hive. So that's what you call an artificial swarm, and they are possibly in the process now of producing a new queen. So that just reminds me that that's a queenless hive. But obviously most of the bees were left there because I only took out maybe 2 or 3 frames to create another artificial swarm. And that's how you do a division as such. You best to take the queen out, and most of the foraging bees hang around in the original box. Although if you take a queen out, you can take out quite a lot of the foraging bees, and they will stick with her wherever you want to put her. I've checked some of the other boxes and they are producing new queen cells. So here we are, right at the back of the land, which parts of it I am reclaiming. And this is what we call the dry riverbed. And you know, despite the drought that we're having, we do have a lot of trees in Catalonia. It is a perennial culture of mainly almond trees and olive trees and carob trees. One of the things that was always here when we moved onto the land 20 years ago was this fig tree, and it is slowly recovering. In fact, it's absolutely thriving this year. The reason being is because we had a tornado come through this dry riverbed, and you can still see some of the damage because I haven't cleared up all of it because of my travelling exploits. I haven't had that much time, but this used to be a very shady area. It was a massive pine tree over in that direction where the sun's rising, and I've taken out, before the tornado actually struck, I was actually logging 4, 5, 6 pine trees from this area because I intend to build the post and beam structure on the outdoor kitchen using them. So there was nature actually helping me out, and I've got unlimited firewood now if I need it. And this is my thyme patch. Fantastic, really. Here we are. It's just the only section of this 3-hectare piece of land where the thyme grows prolifically, and the flower's already been and gone on that, as it is with the rosemary. But when I do my cooking, I just come to this section of the land and pull out a few herbs. So this area is what's called a zone 4. It's a managed wilderness. So there's all the rosemary. A few more hives hidden there amongst the rosemary. The odd rogue pine trees that are coming up, and I'll keep some of them. When pine trees are very difficult to transplant, so when they self-seed themselves and they grow, I'll look to see if that is a favourable aspect in the future, because one of the things we suffer here is a lot of wind damage, and the more trees, the greater the prevention of damage, wind damage, even though pine trees usually are the first to fall, come down, because they have such shallow root systems. But it breaks the wind pattern down the more trees you have on the land. So now I'm just looking at this, and this is one of my splits here, and there's some activity going on. So this has a queen, this box, because I took the queen from elsewhere and put her in here with a colony of bees, and they were doing extremely well. And there seems to be, interestingly, some bees hanging around the lid. So what we could be seeing here is some bee robbing going on. Now that's a very small entranceway for any bee robbers to try and get in there. It's a grilled entranceway to prevent rodents and moths getting in. But that's a strong split, and I would bet my bottom dollar that those bees will easily defend themselves in this situation. But you can actually see the bees sniffing around there, so they look like they're on a hunt for resources. It's getting that time in the year where flower is beginning to dwindle. But I'm not going to mess around with that. I'm just going to let them defend themselves. I know there's a very good queen in there. So you see how I keep this zone 4. This is managed wilderness, because I want the flower, and that's where I put all my beehives. And it's wonderful. You see this pines which are self-seeding, and this rosemary everywhere, and we've got this scrub oak which is also a very good source of pollen for bees. I've seen that in flower and absolutely covered in bees. But the scrub oak also damages a lot of dry stone walls, so once it's in, it's very difficult to get out. And being the back of the land, before the land falls away completely into the dry riverbed, it's going to have very, very little soil. So the only plants that I've had any real success with are what we call here gingos. And that's a sort of a variation of a small apple. It's almost like a small crab apple, but they sell those at the market. The actual Latin name for that is jujube. So here's another split, and I will sit here and just watch these bees sometimes, but no problem here. So you see, even this, the olive just sells seeds everywhere, and don't be in a rush to actually dig this stuff out. Because especially when it's actually grown on this type of land, there's hardly any topsoil here. And it probably does indicate to a certain degree that the quality of the soil around it, because as you can see, the level on the other side of this wall is a little bit higher. And look at that, there's all that self-seeding parsley which has been growing there for years and years and years. It never goes away. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why the trees actually prefer walls, because there's a lot more moisture at the bottom of a wall, and the tap roots can find a lot more water in these situations. And to give you an example of some of the diversity here, this is what we call wild asparagus. Now it's too tough to eat unless you're a goat, but actually when that first comes up, it's an absolutely delicious snack. And it's a Catalonian tradition to go around picking asparagus tops when they first come up through the soil. And now we're approaching the cistern. This is going to be a pump house in here. But considering how shallow the land is, you can see that these carobs do extremely well. These are immature carobs. They go black before they become sweet, and they're producing a very fine price at the local towns. There's a very good source of income now for many farmers. And I'm not in a hurry to clean out some of this stuff. This green briar which grows everywhere, which apparently you can make a tea out of and stuff. The pear cactus, which I'm continually cutting back, and you can see this very serious problem here. I've cut back and burned over the period of 2 years. It's very difficult to burn this stuff. You have to let it dry out first for 2 years before you can burn it. But look at that, it's like an aphid on there, and it just spreads and destroys the cactus plant eventually, and you can't eat any of the fruit on it. So you just literally got to cut the leaves off and prevent the spread. So here we are going around, and this is not my immediate project, but as you can see, it's had the concrete infill all the way around. There we are, with the help of Simon and Geordie, who were here when the two trucks came in and poured in the concrete. I'm really excited about this. I've yet to get out the hydraulic hammer, but I'm going to definitely go down into a point in the middle to create my egg shape, my oval egg shape on the interior. Every inch I go down, there's a lot more water capacity that it will be able to hold. And let's have a look. So some more beehives, and you can see there's a split down there, and I'm just looking at that, and there's a whole bunch of bees around it, and they look like robber bees. Exactly what's going on at the other place. So I'm concerned. It's getting to that time of the year now where my new queens, where they can get, if they I know that hive is producing queen cells, so she won't be born yet, but it's a concern that there's so many bees around there, and they may go in and begin to slowly destroy the small colonies which I've split off. But that's the way it goes. You can't have 100% success. So I'm going to go around there and see what's going on. Here we are. So I've been streaming a bit around here, but a goat would do just as good a job. That's something in the future to think about. And look, there we are. So they're robber bees, and there's not much I can do about that. They're going to go in there and strip out any food sources and leave that colony starving. So I've got a problem there. So what can I do? For now, I can try get a piece of grass like this, you see, and just put that in there. As you can see, they're not attacking me. But yeah, anyway, so just close up the hole. Leave a space for 1 or 2 bees. And when bees do this, you can see that means they've been stung, probably, by other bees. And you can see robber bees, that's what they do. They can sniff out any source of food that's in there. That's the thing about beekeeping. You've got to really be wary about spillages and excess food. They get sniffed out, and within sometimes minutes I've seen thousands of bees congregate on any spare food sources that are unprotected or not being protected well enough. So problem, it's that time in the year now where flowers lacking and bees are stealing from other hives. So this area, this corner is sort of one of my favourite parts of the land. And I've just been streaming there, and it really does come up nicely. Just the back of the land here, which then goes into one of my dog walks. And the back of most people's lands are like this. Very overgrown, but loads of wild plants, loads of flower. Not this, we've missed a flower mostly, but there's a neighbour's plot over there, and here we've got more of that scrub oak, lots of grasses, loads of lentiscus, and pine self-seeding everywhere. And there was a big forest fire here, and some of these, it's taken 10 years, but now some of these olives are really coming back, and you can't notice the burnt pine trunks anymore, but there was a load of those down there as well. And so we're right on the edge here where the land drops away into a dry riverbed, and obviously there's not going to be any water here. This is my volunteer caravan. One of my favourite spots for reading. The dogs love it here as well. And a very nice beware sign of bees for the hunters that come up this way looking for rabbit. And that is a nice piece of graffiti art done by Leo and his mother, Natalie, who came and spent a few days with me. So here we are. The caravan was rotten and we've had to put a new skylight in, but it works as long as it keeps everything dry, and it really is a nice spot. I just have a few books up on there on the shelves, do my reading, a little bit of study, my little charcoal burner. You can't put wood here, the flames go right up that flue, and it's very dangerous around at the back of the land where you've got all the pine needles. But very relaxing space. I'm using my Bluetooth speakers and air conditioners, and you also have to burn these citronella candles here because you do get bugs. So now you get a better view there of the cistern at the back of the land. So that's my sacred Gaia temple for the future. So there's work to do for volunteers that want to come and stay. They're very welcome, but it's a £5 contribution food charge, and you work 4 hours a day for 5 days a week, and then you've got the options to go down to the beach, which is only 6 kilometers away. You've got mountains up where the sun rises in the mornings. So just a couple of wonderful things that are going on here. This bay died right back, but now it's firmly established after a few years, and all that rain we had in March really brought on the leaf on that. So give that a few more years and that would be a nice little bush. And I prefer bushes rather than what we call standard or half standard trees where the trunk is exposed. So this is a peach which is going over to bush, you see. So that's the basil growth coming up, and that is a pretty nice peach which ripens exactly on the date of my mother's birthday. So I gave her a peach this year from that tree. This is a collapsing structure now. It's taken four years for it to eventually collapse, and these are agave flower spikes. You see that? And to give you an idea how much it's collapsed, that was a big open space here, but it's actually falling in itself. And if I come inside, you can see it just snaps eventually. So strong and so paper light. Here we are. Give you an example. And using parts of an old yurt to create a shady area, but that needs to be rebuilt, which means finding agave flower spikes from outside the land, and they do grow wild everywhere. So we have 3 beds here and things do very well. Sage, I've got 4 citrus shrubs, including grapefruit, lemons and oranges, which are about 4 or 5 years old, and they're tiny for that size, but they're firmly established. That's the thing, those root systems now have gone deep enough you can find water, so they don't need watering. They would respond to extra water. So what I do is I plant up, these are pimientos or sweet peppers, and I plant these up around my citrus so that the citrus can benefit from the extra water that's coming in, but they are firmly established and yet to produce a single fruit. So it's just looking at the back of the ark and looking around at all these drought resistant plants, including the ornamental passion flower, and you can see it there. It's just ornamental and it holds the woven Oh, these are a bit tough now. That's cow, but sweet cow. Yeah. So any climbers will hold together the woven cane, which provide a sheltered area for plants to grow in. A little bit of lavender and your geraniums, which do very well. Tradescantia, purple variety. Bees love that. Jade plants, bees love that as also. Essential forms of pollen for a lot of bees. Forms of a wormwood here. Herbal plants. Climbers. And aubergines do quite well in drought conditions. So this is looking out now. My shower unit, and I'm taking 4 showers a day without soap, and just water goes straight back into the well here. Well, I planted up some corn which I bought from Mother Bean in America. That's a friend of mine who's running another farm there, and that's a particular type of ornamental corn. I think it's called glass bead corn. It's very, very beautiful to look at. So anyway, I've just planted those up. And maybe some radish. And also some sunflowers. So I've only got back here at the beginning of June. Look at this. For a fig. What an excellent fig to put inside a tunnel, because that wants to create shade, and the size of those leaves are massive. So I'm training those stems up and around, and eventually this whole area will be covered in climbers and trained fruit trees. And I've got more grape on this side. Again, once established, very difficult to die. Cucumbers along there. Stuff like this is lettuce gone to seed, but I just want I've even got carrot going to seed now, and I can show you some carrot because there's a beautiful flower. Here we are. Carrot going to seed. The idea is that the parsley, the carrot, the lettuce, if I can get all of that going to seed, then I will probably produce enough for the year to suit me, just me alone. I mean, obviously not enough to produce for the whole families, but certainly for me alone, just to have self-seeding plants here and to let them establish and create like what we call a synergistic style gardening. Collecting seed enough without disturbing the soil. See, that's a garlic coming through there. And more grapes. So I've got about three grape plants here, and Cape gooseberries, which are wonderful. And I can show you a fruit of a Cape gooseberry. I don't think I've got any left, but they look like these. The ornamental version of it is called Chinese lanterns. It's physalis, but this definitely is the edible version. And I've eaten all the fruits. You see, absolutely delicious. Look at that, thriving in Mediterranean climates. Okay, so let's go back out and just take you finally it's not luxury living here. I mean, I'm always collecting resources and scraping around for things and building. It's quite hard work. You get bitten a lot, but there's times to do things during the day. You know, you get to know patterns. Rebuilt walls stuff that you find in a dry riverbed, like that bathtub. You have to buy a few things, like building blocks, and even those sometimes you can find. And obviously cement. Big pile of charcoal there, which I'm using planting in underneath trees, and for heating up and for cooking. I do a lot of cooking here, but it's a huge amount of charcoal there I'm building up. And initially I wanted to sell it. I can sell it, I know I can. I haven't really pushed myself out to sell my products. That includes honey and olive oil. But here's a good example. This tree didn't produce much last year, but that's going to have a really nice crop of carobs this year. The thing that ruins the carob season are the winds. They blow the carobs off too early. They become almost paper thin on the ground because they are so dry. And coming up into the compost toilet, which has suffered some sort of wood damage, but that's the idea. I mean, I've done buy this wood, I find it, and it's still very usable on a very strong foundation of 3 joists. Very good wood from Britain. That was from my brother's house when he was rebuilding his own house. He had a load of maybe oak joists. They're going to be around for decades, but I've treated all my wood all around the land with a mixture of diesel oil and spent motor oil, or diesel and spent motor oil. So this is going to be a chicken pen. I've got some ideas. I've planted a few things up in there like crabapple and more jujube, but I'm thinking of putting another tunnel in now, so I've got the materials for it. So a lot of potential projects. This is a grapefruit, which is going to be years before that produces anything. You know, just looking at the land here. Plum, I think it's my second plum on that I have, which is doing particularly well. And maybe a tangerine here. And obviously another windbreak, the direction the wind comes in, and so I'm creating a sort of sheltered area for other plants to live in. And it looks like I'm having success this year with hazels. There we are. Not hazels. Yes, hazels. Need a lot of water to get going, but once that's established, that would benefit from being under the conditions of a carob tree, which actually produces a very good topsoil. And I'm going to show you my dogs. So this is self-seeded olive here, which may produce a very nice quality olive in the end. I'm not going to get rid of that. That's in there, so that's living in synergy with the carob tree, providing shade for it and providing a more nutritious topsoil for it to feed from. And there's an almond there. So this is and some herbs which are planted. So this is going to be like a small forest garden area. And this is what we call Nispero, or Japanese locat. And once established, impossible to die. That's a very nice fruit, which is already passed. And these are my dogs. There's a couple of them. But this tree is very, very productive. Yeah, hello there, Jetty boy. And that's Jetty boy and Benji boy. I wonder where the others are. But look at that for carob. And those carobs, I mean, this tree is absolutely laden sometimes. This year's not so many on it, but the carobs now fetching 160 on a kilo, and a tree can produce hundreds of kilos. So that's the market changed. A few years ago, they were worth no more than about 40 cents a kilo. And there's the chickens. You've seen we've got a problem with rats, but my dad's trying to keep on top of the situation. So that's it really. I mean, there's more to the land, but the big projects are the cistern, the outdoor kitchen area, which is going to have a post and beam structure, the dry composting toilet. You've missed me, Ginger. And dry composting toilet, which wants a little roof on it. So it's a season now for watering and for ecobuild. and then the cropping season starts from September onwards, so I've got a few months to get on with it. And there's a lovely view, and the housing for my batteries. There's a lot of infrastructure gone into this place. In terms of plants, I've more or less done most of the planting now for the to create that infrastructure. I mean, that's a jasmine, that's going to be over the composting area. And this year, for the first time, this wild quince producing fruit. And essentially just to have water holes everywhere for bees especially. Here we are. So I've just planted up a load of stuff in there as well, but that's continue supply water. Bees need water for producing wax. So you can't build comb without water. So now heading back towards the outdoor kitchen. It would be murder hadn't I trimmed the grass, because it's incredibly prickly here. You know, anything living in a harsh environment gets very tough and hard and inedible sometimes. So there we are. And this area here is also another big project. This is going to be an earth oven, and I've built quite a few, and I just built one in Africa, and I thought to myself, that's really what I wanted. But generally there's always like a feeling inside me that when I've built something for somebody else, I'm going to have to wait a few more years before I get on with my own one. But this is going to be the cooking area, and all under a makeshift shelter. Well, I'm going to leave it there. So anybody wants to come along, solterologicgarden.com, get in contact with me, SOLTERIOLOGIC garden, GARDEN.com. So all one word. You can find me there in my blog. Alright, see you around.